Welcome into Rover Sports and Shank and Spence, and we are joined by a very special guest today from 99.5 FM in Fayetteville, Arkansas, ESPN Radio there. It is John Nabors. And John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, man. How about yourself?
Doing pretty well, and a guy who's also doing a lot better is Mike Anderson. This season, he went pretty much 4 years, I believe, without making the tournament. This is his fifth or sixth year, and he was 17-6 overall on the season. And in the middle of the year, it seemed like a lot of Arkansas fans were chirping about his job stability. Take us into when Mike Anderson was 17-6 and the vibe around Fayetteville at that time.
It was so weird because the Razorback fans had an expectation that they would be making it back to the NCAA Tournament, and Mike Anderson made it in his fourth year at Arkansas with Bobby Horse and Michael Qualls, and then last season really took a step back to just win 500 at 16-16, 9-9 in conference, and people were starting to get a little frustrated because they're feeling like, hey, this is Arkansas. You're supposed to be at least into the tournament conversation. And Mike Anderson went out and made some changes, got some guys in, and then at that point in the season, people still felt good about it, but Arkansas was lacking a quality victory. But when they lost to Missouri and Vanderbilt the same week, and Missouri's an awful team, the worst team in the SEC, arguably, and Vanderbilt at the time, they ended up making the tournament, at the time, they weren't considered to be a great team. The fans were all jumping ship. They were saying, this is not going to work out, this is terrible, Mike Anderson needs to go. They need to make a change. And then all of a sudden, they just woke up. And Arkansas has been on a roll ever since that point in time. They did lose a game to Florida and to Kentucky. No shame in that. They won all the games they were supposed to. Went on the road and won games. They've been looking impressive doing it. They hit their stride at the exact right time. And here we are, talking about Mike Anderson. And at this point in time, for fans, they love him. They are fully behind him. They said that they were wrong in wanting him fired. They're glad he's still the coach, and they think he's done a phenomenal job.
With those 5 straight wins that you're talking about, what kind of changed or reemerged with this team that propelled this experienced team to start returning to their winning ways?
Well, I think that just like a lot of teams in college basketball, really in any sport, they just hit a little bit of a slump. They were still figuring some things out, and they ended up, kind of just going with the flow, because you had 7 new faces on this team from the previous year. You had some guys that were in the junior college ranks, like Jalen Barker and Daryl Macon were both the top 2 players in junior college, and they could score, and but they were the best on their team. They never accepted coaching. They were always the best on their team. And there was other guys that you had to kind of fit in with the egos and the guys that had big personalities. Just Mike Anderson had to find a way to make it all gel, and I think it just took a while. And once they were down and out, and they lost to Missouri and all that, they just, whatever it is, they just got it together. They started understanding, okay, we can't do this on our own. We got to play as a team. We got to gel as a team. We got to figure each other's roles and take care of business. And that's what I feel like happened. They just figured it out.
Do you think that the junior college transfers that you mentioned kind of coming into the fold, do you think that was sort of a factor with the soft non-conference scheduling that Arkansas had? Because you look at Vanderbilt, they're 19-15. And you look at Arkansas, and their record significantly better. I believe you guys are around 24, 25 wins on the season. So why do you think that the non-conference schedule was so soft, and is that something that you criticized at the time, trying to find those quality opponents in the non-con?
Yeah, that was part of it. I know that Mike Anderson and the coaches, the thing is they try to find quality non-conference opponents. They really did try. Just this year, the way it fell, it doesn't necessarily go that way. Because if you just look at the schedule itself, like going to Minnesota actually ended up being a pretty solid non-conference game. It was early in the season, it's hard to tell, but Minnesota went to the tournament. The other game that kind of stood out was Texas, which, I mean, Texas is not a good team this year, but, going into the season, you felt like that Shaka Smart, it has to do with the fact that the non-conference opponents they played, yeah, they weren't big-time name schools, but they were very good directional schools. They were very good non-conference schools that maybe not get the credit that they deserve. You think of a Texas Arlington team that had some significant wins even against good opponents. And I mean, there's other teams there that were involved too that just maybe didn't get the credit just because they didn't have the great name on their jersey, which is why their RPI is so high, which is why they really got in.
Mm-hmm. You look at, and for the Philadelphia listeners, this is John Nabors. He works at 99.5 FM. He hosts the Forum podcast. And for guys here in Philly that might not have watched Arkansas, that are going to watch them take on Seton Hall, you look at the leading scorers of this team, the top three leading scorers. You have one senior and two juniors, and you have Dusty Hannons, Macon Barford, and Kingsley that are the leading scorers on this team. Is this a very guard-oriented team that likes to get up and down and shoot threes? What is the style of this team? And tell us about some of the leading scorers on this basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, it's Mike Anderson. He likes to adapt the style he calls fastest 40 minutes basketball, which was a play off of Nolan Richardson, who was Mike Anderson's head coach, and he was an assistant, or he was a Hall of Fame coach. He called it 40 minutes of hell. It's up and down, wear you down type of style, and you've seen teams who suffer from that, where they're just very athletic. Even their big man, Moses Kingsley, who is a tall guy, he gets up and down the court. It's not like he just plants himself in. He finds ways to be extremely athletic. So it's very hectic, it's very up and down, but they can vary, where they do man-to-man, they do half-court man-to-man, but then they go out and they'll do a 2-3 zone on defense, but maybe a 2-2-1 full-court press. I mean, they are very they can come at you in different ways defensively. Now, as far as the leading scorers go, you got Jalen Barford, Daryl Macon, and Dusty Hannons. All three of them have very different ways of scoring. All three of them can shoot threes. Dusty and Daryl are definitely better at that than Jalen, but Jalen can get to the hole as good as anybody I've seen in a long time. He's so creative when he drives to the basket. Daryl can do a little bit. Daryl's not necessarily great at that, but Daryl can hit free throws. He can get fouled and he can get to the free throw line. And then Dusty, he's good at just getting his little runners up or shooting threes. They all are good at different things, and that's what makes them so effective offensively, and that's what's made them so good this year. And then if you can just add in a guy like Moses, who can go out and get double figures, get a double-double on any given night, preseason SEC player of the year, he's still a solid player, but, they have those elements, and then guys coming off the bench that can add something too. They have different weapons for sure.
So, John, when it was announced that that Arkansas was going to Greenville, South Carolina, and they drew the North Carolina Tar Heels, out of all the number ones and number two seeds in the fields, you have Louisville, you have Kansas as your ones and twos, Villanova. What did you think of drawing North Carolina, and do you think that might be the toughest number one, especially going to Greenville, or do you look at the matchup and say, hey, if we beat Seton Hall, there's a chance? What do you think of North Carolina and Arkansas maybe having them as a second-round game?
I'm kind of frustrated by it because Arkansas has played, if Arkansas beats Seton Hall, and we're all assuming that if they beat Seton Hall, this will be the third straight NCAA tournament where Arkansas had to play North Carolina in the second round. Third straight year. They played them in the second round in 2014, or 2014, 2015, and they played them in the second round back in 2008, 2009. They have played North Carolina more times already. This is 5 times in the history of Arkansas they have played North Carolina in the NCAA tournament. More team than any other team in their history, and if they win, it'll be the 6th time. So it's frustrating. I don't think Arkansas is going to have a good chance. I don't think they match up well. I think North Carolina is one of the better teams in the country. But at the same time, it doesn't really matter what one seed you could have. I guess Gonzaga would have been good just to see how the athleticism matches up. Would have been interesting to see that. But overall, North Carolina or Villanova or Kansas, I don't think it would have mattered. Playing in Greenville kind of sucks because I know Razorback fans were hoping that Arkansas could draw that seed against Kansas in Tulsa, which Tulsa's just 2 hours away from Fayetteville. So it would have been nice for fans, but so that you can't do anything about it. You just got to go play the game that the committee put in front of you. But it's just weird and frustrating that it has to be North Carolina again.
Hey, John, it's Bruce, the Sports Talk here, and just listening to that, It seems like the committee does have certain preferences. Certainly, they seem like they have a bias against the Missouri Valley. Certainly, Illinois State knows that. And it seems that sometimes there might be one guy in the committee that just gets a little chuckle out of putting Arkansas in that situation against North Carolina. And it's pretty frustrating to not be able to develop momentum in the tournament and have to play the Tar Heels. So I can certainly understand it. It's like Groundhog Day having to play those guys over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And for me, who just enjoys watching the team, it's not that I feel like, Arkansas can't beat North Carolina and they'd have a better chance against a different one seed. It's just for the sake of variety. I want to see more. I wanted to see Arkansas play Kansas. They haven't played Kansas since 2006 or 2005, 2006. I wanted to see him play Villanova because he's never really played Villanova in their entire history. I just wanted to see something different because I've already seen North Carolina and Arkansas go head-to-head, and it usually doesn't end well for Arkansas.
And John, also going to Greenville. I mean, I hear it's an impossible place for I hear it's such a tough place for fans to get to. It's not an easy ride. Once you fly into Charleston or in South Carolina, and then you look, North Carolina usually plays in Greensboro. I'm not sure where they played in 2014 versus the Razorbacks, but they certainly have a home court advantage. And if Arkansas got to Memphis, that would be incredible. But it's going to be so tough playing those bigs that North Carolina has as well.
Yeah, I don't expect Arkansas to beat North Carolina. I mean, if anything can happen, it is March Madness. It is the tournament. Crazy things happen. In fact, Mike Anderson was the head coach of University of Alabama Birmingham, UAB, where he took his team to the Sweet 16, and he did that by beating the number one seed Kentucky and the number one overall team that year to advance to the Sweet 16. I don't see that being the case in this scenario, but if, and that's a big if, Arkansas was able to beat Seton Hall and beat North Carolina and head back to Memphis for the Sweet 16, I think the Razorbacks would take over that city because the fans have been dying to get back and have some excitement. And the fact that Memphis is literally right there and there's a lot of Razorback fans there already, it would be an extremely fun and energetic city for the Arkansas sake, and the Razorback fans would take it over. I mean, you'd see nothing but red all over the place.
That's awesome. And John, I wanted to ask you a couple of fun questions here before we let you go. It's John Nabors here from 99.5 FM in Fayetteville, Arkansas. And we're asking all of our guests this week these questions. I first wanted to ask you, how many brackets do you fill out for March Madness, and where would you rank Thursday and Friday in terms of sporting days in the United States calendar? Where would you put up Thursday and Friday of March Madness, and how many brackets are you filling out this year?
I'm kind of old school. I fill out one. I fill out one, and that's it. I stick with it, and I'm in different pools. I do stuff with just my family. We do a bracket, and then I do one with my show where all the listeners are in. But I fill out the same bracket because I feel like it's kind of cheap. If it's I feel one way, and then you're going to tell me I'm going to feel a different way in a different bracket. No, I just go with what I feel. So I only stick with one bracket. But on Thursday and Friday, it ranks high up there because there's not many times in any sport, really, where throughout the entire day you have a championship, like a playoff. Like if you have baseball playoffs or whatnot, they're always at night. If it's a major league, or if it's the NFL, it's always on the weekends or whatnot. But on Thursday, if you're at work or whatnot, you will have the television on to watch college basketball all day long on different channels at all different times, and it's exciting. Not really any more sports can do that, but if to me, even if Arkansas wasn't involved, I'd still watch it. I still get into it, and I just love seeing these small schools I've never heard of find ways to upset blue blood programs. It's really exciting.
Yeah, John, I always feel like that's like filling out more than one bingo card. I think that's cheating. So you pick your bracket, and then you stick with it. And but you're right. I'd have to say, as far as productivity in the United States, Thursday and Friday has to be a combination of two least productive days. As an employer, I almost want to just give everybody off. So I know they're going to be watching the games anyway.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're going to be out there. They're going to be watching the games, at least following it on their phone, because not only do people want to watch the games, but everybody fills out a bracket, even the people that don't even like college basketball. So they want to catch up with it and see exactly how good they're doing, how bad they're doing, and whatnot. So it's something cool that everybody can get involved in.
Yeah, John, like I'm kind of struggling myself with the bracket because, I have in some ways I have Arizona winning, and it's just I think it's better from a superstitious standpoint as well to just have one, to be decisive. So I'm proud of you for being decisive, John.
Well, that's how I am, man. Like, if I get it right, then I know that it wasn't because I went against my gut. It's because I went with my gut, and I went with what I felt was right, and so therefore I feel better about it.
John, thank you so much for the time, man. Thanks for joining Rover Sports. Good luck to the Hogs, and it's always fun talking with you, John.
Of course, guys, anytime. Always appreciate it. Have fun up there.